Hi everyone, let me introduce my friend here. This is Stuart, and Stuart and I are going to have a little bit of a debate, a bit of a conversation about Star Trek. So I'm a big old school Star Trek fan. Stuart, what would you say?
Well, I like Alias, and I like Mission Impossible 3, and
So you're a JJ
I like Lost
Abrams
and
fan.
all of that, yeah.
Okay, so in that case, I will be representing the old guard here, and you'll be representing the idiots.
Sorry?
Yes, I'm going to go old school on it. We're going back to William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and look at the maths of Star Trek, because lots of people have done the physics of Star Trek. They've talked about warp drives,
Yep.
and time travel, and all the transporters and things. That's been done to death.
Boring.
Right.
I'll tell you what we need to focus on is numbers.
Yes.
That'll really get the kids
Right.
excited.
Mr. Spock, you are second in command. This will be a dangerous hunt. Either one of us, by himself, is expendable. Both of us are not.
Captain, there are approximately 100 of us engaged in this search against one creature. The odds against you and I both being killed are 2,228.7 to 1.
2,228.7 to 1. Those are pretty good odds, Mr. Spock.
And they are, of course, accurate, Captain.
Of course. Well, I hate to use the word, but logically, with those kind of odds, you might as well stay. But please stay out of trouble, Mr. Spock.
That is always my intention, Captain.
Who's the most likely person to die on the Starship Enterprise? Which colour shirt? You know this
right,
trope.
okay.
Come
Yeah.
on, you know how this. Everyone says this. What is the most likely person to die? Who is?
The red shirts.
Yes, because
Yeah.
everyone says it's the red shirts. Right?
Yeah, and that's what I told my friend when we went to watch Star Trek Into Darkness. She didn't know anything about Star Trek, and there's a point in that where Kirk says, "Let's get you into a couple of red shirts," and I
they
went, "That'll be the
Oh,
yeah."
oh, it's like a joke. It's almost like a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right.
It's
That's
almost
what,
like a
It's
joke.
almost like a joke. Not much like one, but it's nearly there. So you know that's what people say.
Yeah.
Would I blow your mind if I told you that the most likely people to die are the gold shirts? Would you be moderately impressed?
Yeah, I think that would be it. I more because I didn't know there were gold shirts.
If you do the analysis, and I have, right, if you look at the numbers, number of red shirts, in the whole of the Star Trek original series, right, there were 59 deaths. Right. Now, 16 of those were off-screen.
59 deaths.
59
How many
deaths
episodes are in all three?
in all 79 episodes.
Really?
Of the original Star Trek, 59 deaths.
Yeah.
16, though, we didn't see. Right, they were off-screen. It was either some sort of disease or attack. We didn't see it.
Yeah.
So, of the 43 deaths that we saw, let's see, 25 of them were red shirts. 25 out of 43.
Yeah.
Which is 58%. 58% of people who died were red shirts, which is pretty bad.
Yeah, that's, for example, I can tell you some maths here. 58% is 100% likely to be the majority.
You're absolutely right. Even Joan Collins had a 50-50 chance of survival.
Yeah.
That's a Star Trek reference that you don't understand, is it?
No.
No. Right. So, 10 people, 10 gold shirts died.
Okay.
10 out of 43. How many is that?
That is 23%.
It actually is. Yeah, it
Is it?
actually is
Yeah.
23%. 23%.
Yeah, blowing your mind.
You're looking at my notes.
No, I'm just doing it up here.
23%.
Up in the old maths computer.
Up here, yes,
Yeah.
this is where the magic happens. So you can tell
58 to 23,
out of
I
the
can do
people.
some more, but this is where you're going to get me.
Yeah, this is where I'm going to get you. Out of the people who died, yes, more red shirts died. However, you would expect more red shirts to die if there were more red shirts on the ship to begin with. And that's the case. You know, some nerds have actually done the technical manuals.
Yes, yeah.
Nerds, those other people. There's
Yeah.
other types of people.
People I like to make videos
Now
with.
there's 239 red shirts on the ship.
Really?
239, that's 4 times as many as the gold shirts. There's only 55 gold shirts on the ship. So 25 deaths out of 239. That's about 10%. 10% of the red shirts died. Now if you look at the gold shirts, that was 10 out of 55 gold shirts, which is about 18%. So about 18% of gold shirts died, which means the gold shirts are more likely to die. You are more likely to die if you have a gold shirt than if you had a red shirt.
However, if you're being asked to change into a shirt, what shirt should you want to be changing into?
You will want to be in blue. Notice I'm wearing science blue. For mathematicians and scientists, I'm wearing science blue. I have noticed you're wearing your Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the odds of surviving.
A lot more people die in Battlestar Galactica.
A lot more. I think they're not as good.
Yeah, I think if you're going to choose a series to be in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Just because you'll survive. I mean, you're not going to die because you're an actor.
Even in this corner of the galaxy, Captain, 2 + 2 = 4.
It's one of the great episodes of Star Trek is the Tribble episode.
Yep, I know
Right.
the Tribbles.
Do you know the Tribbles? That's something you know.
Yeah, because it's in the new and amazing film Star Trek Into Darkness.
Must be thousands of them.
Hundreds of thousands.
1,771,561. That's assuming 1 Tribble, multiplying with an average litter of 10, producing a new generation every 12 hours over a period of 3 days.
And that's assuming that they got here 3 days ago.
So there was a Tribble in the new Star Treks as well. There were many more Tribbles, though, in the original.
Trouble with Tribbles.
Trouble with Tribbles. So the Tribbles are born pregnant and they reproduce at a huge rate. Spock calculates that there must be 1,771,561 Tribbles on the space station on the ship. Assuming you start with 1 Tribble, that produces an average litter of 10 Tribbles every 12 hours for a period of 3 days.
Yeah.
So the sum that you have to do, let's say you take a population of Tribbles, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter how many, you take so many Tribbles. Now, we say that each Tribble has an average litter of 10. So with the next generation of Tribbles, you have 10 times as many baby Tribbles. So they keep multiplying, so it's 10 times. But you have to add on the original population of Tribbles that you started with. So you've got 10 times as many plus the original population. That's 11 times as many Tribbles as you had before. The population has been multiplied by a factor of 11. And that will happen every 12 hours. So it gets multiplied by 11. So if you start with 1 Tribble, then you'll have 11 Tribbles.
11 Tribbles.
10 baby Tribbles and the original.
Yeah.
Then you'll have 121 Tribbles. Then you wait again, and that will happen 6 times over. In 3 days, 6 times over, 11 times 11 times 11, and you'll get the answer 11 to the power 6, which is 1,771,561, which is exactly right. And I was so impressed. Yeah. I was so impressed that they did the maths right.
Well done.
Yeah, and this population growth is part of something called mathematical biology.
How do Vulcans choose their mates? Haven't you wondered?
I guess the rest of us assume that it's done quite logically.
No. It is not. We shield it with ritual and custom shrouded in antiquity. You humans have no conception. It strips our minds from us. It brings a madness which rips away our veneer of civilization. It is the Pon farr, the time of mating. There are precedents in nature, Captain. The giant eel birds of Regulus V. Once each 11 years, they must return to the caverns where they hatched. On your Earth, the salmon, they must return to that one stream where they were born to spawn, or die in trying.
So what, the Vulcan has to return every 11 years to...
Well, it turns out, although it's not said explicitly in that episode, it is later established that it's every 7 years.
7 years.
So they must mate every 7 years, and this turns up in nature as well. So in particular, I'm thinking about the cicadas of North America.
Yeah.
The cicadas, have you heard?
Fabulous band.
Yeah. Do you know the cicadas? Do you like their work?
Yeah, of North America. Yeah.
Do you know the cicadas? Do you know the little insects?
Yes, yes.
They're kind of like locusts, but they're not quite. And they live underground. But they emerge periodically. And they're called periodic cicadas.
Yeah.
And they come out, well, either every 13 years or every 17 years. So it's a long time between mating.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I kind of know how it feels. So it's a long time between sessions.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine who I lost contact with about 17 years ago as well.
It's always the way. We are due for a big comeback from Hanson as well.
Yeah.
And there is a reason why these numbers, 13 and 17, why they are prime. Now, I think we've talked about this, so I think you've heard of this already. You know
yes,
this.
so to avoid predation.
Yeah.
Well, to help avoid predation.
Yes, so some guys have come up with this theory that by having a prime number life cycle, it puts them out of step, out of sync with the predators nearby.
And it confuses them. And there's one thing that predators hate, and that's just feeling a bit like, what? Oh, hang on, where are they? They should be out by now. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Am I hungry? Could I eat a cicada? Or I don't
know.
But
they won't know.
Yeah.
They'd have no idea.
So, and that really just upsets them. Yeah. And that's the way to deal with the predator, is just sort of upset them.
Yeah.
Because most predators are bullies. And the way to deal with a bully is often just to confuse them and just put them out of step with what they understand.
Yeah, that's pretty. It never worked out for me at school.
Didn't it?
No.
Oh.
I tried to confuse them.
Yeah.
Didn't work. I think that might have been why they bullied me.
Yeah. Yeah, probably if it was unprovoked confusing. You just came up and went, "Hey, is the tribal population accurate in Star Trek?" They go, "Well, hello."
A lot of my childhood and school days is suddenly becoming clear.
Yeah, there you go. I liked football at school, so it was easier to sort of... But what you can say about this is that there's some interesting stuff, what they did with the split timeline and stuff like that, so that this all exists, is interesting and a good solution to deal with maniacs like you.
I see no flaw whatsoever.
Right, so they've dealt with maniacs like yourself who are like, Shatner, you're so good.
Don't diss the Shat.
I'm not dissing the Shat. I just go, give me Chris Pine any time of day.
How many aliens are there in the galaxy, in the Star Trek galaxy, and in our own galaxy?
The Star Trek galaxy is our galaxy, right? It's not like...
Only if we had a eugenics war in the 1990s.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Did we have a eugenics war in the 1990s?
I believe we did. No, we didn't. The 90s,
again.
90s was fine, really, apart from the Balkans.
Balkans.
And the Gulf War, for Gulf War One.
And don't forget, Hanson.
And Hanson.
I look around that bridge. I see the men waiting for me to make the next move. And Bones, what if I'm wrong?
Captain, I don't really expect an answer. But I've got one. Something I seldom say to a customer, Jim. In this galaxy, there's a mathematical probability of 3 million Earth-type planets. And in all of the universe, 3 million galaxies like this. And in all of that, and perhaps more, only one of each of us. Don't destroy the one named Kirk.
He's invoking something there. He's invoking something called Drake's equation. Have you heard of Drake's equation?
That's to estimate the number of ducks it would take to launch a popular uprising.
You're very close.
So close.
Very close.
I think I know what this... I think I do kind of know what it is. It's something to do with, like, how much there is, how many stars there are,
Yep.
and how many potential planets there are, and then work out how many that could support life.
Exactly right. So, in the 1960s, they wanted to contact, well, they still do, contact alien life using radio signals. And so Francis Drake came up with
Francis Drake?
Actually, his name is Sir Francis Drake. I've only just his name was Frank Drake.
Frank Drake also sounds like a hard-boiled PI from...
Frank Drake, don't mess with me.
I'm Frank Drake. I'm going to find out how many aliens be living in the whole universe.
He wanted to estimate how many planets have, well, Earth-like planets with life, with intelligent life, that perhaps we could pick up their radio signals from. So he came up with an equation, and it's really just to start a conversation about it. But the equation involved, parameters such as the rate of star formation per year. They had things like how many of those stars then have an Earth-like planet, how many of those planets have life on, how many of those planets again, and it's getting smaller each time, have intelligent life, and how many of those planets have life that can be sending out radio signals that we can pick up.
Sure.
So that's clearly what McCoy is invoking.
That's what he's up to.
When he's doing that. Gene Roddenberry, who's the creator of Star Trek, was aware of Drake's equation. He actually used Drake's equation when he was pitching the show to justify how many aliens that they were going to bump into on the show.
Well done, Sir Gene Roddenberry.
However, he didn't have the actual equation to hand at that moment.
So he made it up.
He made up an equation. He made up an equation that looked like a science equation.
Yeah.
So he made up his own version, the Roddenberry variant.
But there was no explosion.
I lied.
But he lied. Everything Harry tells you is a lie. Remember that. Everything Harry tells you is a lie.
Now listen to this carefully, Norman.
I am lying.
You say you are lying, but if everything you say is a lie, then you are telling the truth. But you cannot tell the truth because everything you say is a lie. But you lie, you tell the truth, but you cannot, for you lie. Illogical. Illogical. Please explain. You are human. Only humans can explain their behavior. Please explain.
I am not programmed to respond in that area.
Captain Kirk actually manages to talk computers to death on no less than 4 separate occasions during the course of the original series.
Take that, technology.
Yes.
We're in charge, mate.
Through the use of paradox or moral dilemmas.
Yeah. What I like about that is that Kirk's wearing a very fetching V.
Yeah, that's his
V-neck on.
That's his alternative uniform. That's his green wraparound tunic. It's quite nice, isn't it?
It's really nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
It
says to the people watching.
I finally started to bring you over to my side.
Yeah, it's just saying I'm a bit casual today.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I'm going to talk an android
I
to
might
death.
be captain. I might be captain, but we don't stand on ceremony.
Yeah.
All right, it's easy. So that was the lies paradox.
Lies paradox.
So the lies paradox can be more simply stated as this sentence is false.
Yeah, lies paradox, of course, is next door to Gangster's Paradise.
Yeah, we're back into the 90s again.
Yeah.
I think this is going to date us quite badly.
It is. It is. So lies paradox says that this person always lies, but then they say, I'm lying.
So therefore,
they're telling the truth.
He's telling the truth, but if he's telling the truth, then he says he's lying.
Yeah.
So that he's lying. So that
and
brain aneurysm.
The grandfather paradox.
That's where you're drifting into physics.
Yeah.
So that was the liar's paradox. Now, the liar's paradox actually turns up in real maths, serious maths. It was actually one of the central features of one of the most important results of the 20th century. At the beginning of the 20th century, mathematicians were interested in the fundamentals of mathematics. They were interested in the basic truths called axioms. And from these basic truths, the most basic things you can think of, from just that, building everything else from that, proving everything else in mathematics from the most reasonable but basic truths that you can.
Sure.
So yeah, if you talk about arithmetic, it might be 0 is a natural number, each number has a successor, and then from that you start to build like a ladder of
truth.
Yeah, of counting. You get the 1, you get the 2.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, it's the counting numbers. So you can start to do this from the basics. And there's a book written by Bertrand Russell and Whitehead called Principia Mathematica. It came out the early 20th century. And they were interested in the basic truths of mathematics. And in volume 2, page 87, they prove that 1 + 1 = 2. And that's volume 2, page 87.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work gone into it.
A lot of work on it.
Yeah.
Moderately useful result.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that turns up. By the way, you can't truly appreciate Principia Mathematica until you've read it in its original Klingon. That's the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get the subtleties.
Yeah, no, I that's the only way I'll read it. Well, I've got the audiobook because I drive a lot, so I don't get a chance to open a book, but I like to listen to it, so I just like to listen to it in its original Klingon.
Yeah, that's okay, and it's read by General Chan.
Yeah.
The audiobook.
Yeah.
So you
Jackie
get that.
Chan.
Get that.
Yeah.
So what they wanted to prove was that we could prove every result in mathematics just from these basic truths. Wouldn't that be good?
Yeah, it would be nice.
Until now, Gödel came along. Gödel, Austrian-American mathematician Gödel. Gödel. What he did is he was able to give every mathematical statement a number. However, he also showed that there will always be able to construct a number that is the equivalent to the liar's paradox. You can always construct something that is the equivalent of the liar's paradox, but instead of saying this sentence is false, it instead says this statement is not provable. Slightly different, but an important difference. What it means is, though, that there will always exist statements in mathematics that cannot be proved. True statements that cannot be proved using that original framework of axioms.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not too bad.
Okay.
It's not too much of a disaster. You can use other axioms, you can use other areas of mathematics to fill in the holes that you will discover.
Yeah.
It's not a disaster. Don't worry.
Okay.
But
Calm
if
down.
you set up a system that is advanced enough for arithmetic, then it's going to have one of these liar paradox statements in it.
Is there an example that I would understand?
No.
Okay. Abrams is good. I'll tell you why Abrams is good. And you may not like the new Star Trek, but you can't deny it was enjoyable while it happened. This is good. It's a good film.
There's a bit of pine.
Bit of pine. Kurtzman and Orci, who write it, have also written Transformers. And if they're capable of writing such turgid rubbish as that, but are also capable of writing the best Mission Impossible, some fantastic episodes of Alias, which has some really good maths and stuff in it, I recommend investigating. And then can also write something like this, which is, for a blockbuster, a pretty smart film, raises some interesting issues, and does a good job of getting a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't like Star Trek to like Star Trek. And at the end of the day, isn't that what it's all about? Thanks, James, for having me on.
No problem.
And it's been really, I genuinely, I do actually want to watch some of the early series now and see some of this maths and the interesting stuff. And
That was some torpedo acting.
is it? Okay. Now, I've been Stuart Laws, and thanks if you have been watching, you have been. What's the thing?
Thanks.
If you have been watching, thanks.
It's not dead after all. And if they turn up the audio sensors, they will be able to pick up. Is that all right?
Sorry, it's just.
Am I boring you?
I think it's a lack of oxygen more than the actual topics.